My wife and I have twin boys who are 12 years old. My sons have always liked me more than her because she is overly aggressive and dismissive of them. It is an issue I have brought up with her countless times over the years. She says she isn't, but she obviously is, and even other members of our family have commented on it. If the boys play too loudly, she freaks out. If the boys are in the middle of a TV show and she decides she wants the TV, they have to get up immediately. She scolds them over small things like not having spotless bedrooms, forgetting to put the toilet seat down, wrestling even when it's outdoors, and not closing the bread tightly enough for her liking. She is always looking for a reason to yell at them. The thing is, they aren't even bad kids. In fact, they are very well behaved, both get great grades, and participate in extracurricular activities. They do not deserve the treatment my wife gives them. Ever since I started working from home after infection 19, I have always had to protect them from her and overcompensate for just how aggressive she is with them. This has caused them to gravitate towards me and basically steer clear of her whenever they can. She started taking the afternoon shifts at the hospital a few months ago, and the boys have been so much happier with her not around. It honestly makes me sad how negatively she impacts them. Well, on Friday, she and I picked up the boys from school, and they told us about a class field trip they are going on towards the end of April. The school wants all the kids to bring a parent, and the boys were insistent that I go with them. When my wife offered, they got visibly upset and said they'd rather have me. I told the boys not to be rude and we will have to check our schedules. When we got back to the house, my wife started talking to me in a very bitter tone about how I'm the favorite, and the boys hate her. I told her this was because she treats them poorly, as I've told her dozens of times before, and that if she wants them to care about her, she needs to be better. She got really upset at this, obviously, but she needed to hear it. She went to the bedroom and locked the door. I just let her be and ended up playing video games with the boys. About an hour later, she came out and said, "Of course, you're all just sitting around instead of checking in on Mom." We didn't say anything, and she ended up leaving the house. She does this sometimes, as she does have some mental health issues that she is medicated for, so we've learned the best strategy is to ignore her when she gets like this. When she came back home, she didn't eat the dinner I made and slept on the couch. All weekend she kept to herself, and this morning she told me that what I said to her was completely wrong, and I needed to apologize. I did, but told her the sentiment was truthful, and it's something she really needs to work on. She says she doesn't, and she parents the kids just fine. I told her just because you don't hit the kids doesn't mean you treat them well, and she once again got really upset and is once again ignoring me. I feel like she needs to hear this over and over until it gets through to her, and this has been going on for so long I feel I need to be more blunt with her behavior. Am I wrong for telling her how I see it in this manner? Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. How much longer are you going to let her traumatize your boys until you either divorce her or get her into therapy as soon as possible? Seriously, I get that you love her and all, but once children come into play, they are the priority. Dude, everyone else can see how she mistreats the kids. Are you really going to make them unhappy by having her around in her current state? It's time to face the facts. She is not a good mother, and from what you shared here, she doesn't seem like a good spouse either. You need to put your sons above your wife. She needs help, but the kind of help you cannot provide. Comment 2. Not the idiot. If this is something you have addressed numerous times in the past, and she still cannot see how her behavior towards her children is affecting the relationship she has with them, then I would suggest she needs therapy to understand and deal with her reactions. You and your boys will also benefit from therapy, as you also need tools to deal with her mental health issues and be able to support and help her, as well as dealing with your own emotions. Now, for the update. Thanks for all the comments on my last post. Things have escalated since then, and I'm not sure where to start. The tension in the house reached a boiling point last week. My wife had been giving me the silent treatment since our last argument, and the boys were walking on eggshells around her. Then, out of nowhere, she announced she had scheduled a family therapy session for us. I was taken aback but agreed, thinking maybe this was a step in the right direction. The therapy session was a disaster. She spent the entire time painting herself as the victim, saying how she felt unappreciated and overworked. The boys tried to speak up, but she shot them down every time they tried to explain how they felt. I got so angry I ended up siding with the boys, which only made things worse. The therapist suggested we take a break and try individual sessions for a while. After the session, my wife was furious. She accused me of turning the boys against her and said I was undermining her authority as a parent. I tried to explain that wasn't my intention, but she wouldn't listen. She stormed out of the house and didn't come back until late at night. The next day, she acted like nothing happened. But then she did something that shocked us all. She told the boys she had signed them up for a weekend boot camp for troubled teens. They were devastated and begged me not to let her send them away. I was furious. They're good kids, they don't need a boot camp. I told her there was no way I'd allow it, and we had a huge fight. I should have seen it coming. But in the heat of the moment, I told her if she didn't cancel it, I'd take the boys and leave. She called my bluff, or so I thought. She said the boys needed discipline and that I was too soft on them. I couldn't believe she was willing to go this far. So I did it. I packed our bags and took the boys to my brother's house for the weekend. It was a rash decision, and I didn't realize the consequences it would have. While we were gone, my wife had a breakdown. She was alone, and without us there, she spiraled. My brother told me I should go back and talk to her, but I was too stubborn. I thought I was teaching her a lesson. When we returned home, the house was a mess, and she was in a state I'd never seen her in before. She had stopped taking her medication and was talking about how she'd lost everything. I tried to comfort her, but she pushed me away. I realized then that I had made the wrong choice. Instead of helping, I had abandoned her when she needed me the most. Now, we're trying to pick up the pieces. She's back on her medication and has agreed to go to individual therapy. The boys are confused and upset by everything that's happened. I'm trying to mend things with my wife, but there's a lot of resentment and hurt between us. I thought I was standing up for my sons, but I didn't consider the impact my actions would have on my wife's mental health. I'm not sure how to move forward from here, but I'm trying to make things right, one day at a time. Thanks for reading. My wife wants a divorce to get welfare, but I convince her to get a real job and save our family instead. I, 35-year-old male, was told by my wife, 34-year-old female, that she wanted a divorce so she could qualify for government assistance. We have been together for 5 years and married for 2. We both live together with her 2 children, 15-year-old male, 7-year-old female. She has a master's degree in education and is in good health. She quit her job roughly a year ago to pursue a career as a life coach mindfulness instructor. Basically, she wanted to be a content creator for Instagram and TikTok. I was very against it due to our usually tight budget and the fact that she receives very little help from her children's father. I loved this woman and wanted to be a supportive husband, so I reluctantly agreed for a short time to help her try it out, with the assumption that if it wasn't working, she would go back to full-time employment. I was working at one point between 6-7 days a week to try and make enough for us to live. Well, it didn't take off like she thought, and after some tough conversations, she found a job as a middle school substitute teacher, as it still allows her to have a somewhat flexible schedule for her content creation and time to be more involved in her kids' lives, bus pickup, after-school sports. This arrangement is still not working as it pays very little, and we live in an expensive part of the Northeast. She realistically needs a full-time decent-paying job like she had in the first few years of our relationship. Now, in the present day, during our conversation, I asked her again to start looking for something that would better suit our needs. And she tells me that she cannot work a full-time job due to her children, and it would be easier for her to divorce me on paper and receive government welfare to support the family. She could easily work full-time, and there are numerous job openings for people with her degrees. I'm at a loss. I've already compromised a lot for this relationship. I honestly loved being a husband and everything that comes with it. From what I'm told, I have been a good partner and I make sure to do my share of housework and the like. It's purely a monetary issue. She just finds it more convenient to divorce me, but still wants everything else to stay the same. I would like to note that I am not against assistance if it's really needed, as I know some people really do need such programs to survive. She has skills and degrees and is very intelligent. There is no reason why she can't work. Am I the jerk for agreeing to the divorce but not staying in the relationship? Edit to answer some questions in the comments. Her kid's dad pays child support, but it's a joke how much the court makes him pay. I am totally not okay with the fraud and would never do it. I work very hard for what I have. She could only technically receive about a year of alimony, but I will fight that if it came down to it. I would rather give it to a lawyer than to her. Plus, I have numerous texts talking about the fraud she's proposing. I'm leaving and have told her I'm out on April 1st, and I've already started packing. Thank you, internet strangers, for the support and guidance. I was having a tough day. Even though she seems like a loser, I loved her very much, and this has been hard. Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Not the idiot. Your wife is a lazy person that would rather divorce you and have taxpayers provide for her than to get off her butt and do a job. Cannot work a full-time job due to her children, so she could work a full-time job before you when she was a single parent and had no help with the kids. But not now that she has you to help with the kids? Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. /S. Comment 2. She's 34 years old with 2 kids to support and is still fixated on being an influencer and wants to defraud the state government to fund it? Dude, get the hell out of this and find a grown-up to be with. I'd probably even notify the program office of her intentions. What a joke. Now for the update, thanks for the comments on my last post. Things have escalated since then. Just when I thought I had seen it all, my wife threw another curveball at me. She said she'd reconsider the divorce if I agreed to a new plan. She wanted to move her mom into our house to help with the kids so she could work more on her content creation. Her mom, who I've never really gotten along with, is retired and has been itching to be more involved in our lives. I was torn. On one hand, this could mean my wife wouldn't need to divorce me for assistance. On the other hand, living with her mom would be a nightmare for me. Plus, it didn't solve the root problem. My wife still wasn't willing to get a proper job. Meanwhile, the tension at home was unbearable. The kids could feel something was off, and it was affecting them too. The oldest started acting out at school, and the youngest was clingy and anxious all the time. I felt like I was failing them as a stepdad. I decided to talk to a friend who's a social worker, to get some perspective. She was blunt with me. She said that while my wife's plan might work short-term, it wasn't a real solution. She also reminded me that the kids needed stability, and that my wife's erratic career choices were not providing that. That night, I lay awake thinking about everything. I realized that I couldn't keep sacrificing my happiness and well-being for a relationship that was so one-sided. It was a hard pill to swallow, but I knew what I had to do. The next day, I sat down with my wife and laid it all out. I told her I couldn't live with her mom, and I couldn't support her content creation dream any longer if it meant our family would suffer. I said I was willing to support her in finding a full-time job, but that was my final offer. She was furious. She accused me of not believing in her and not being supportive, but I stood my ground. It was the hardest conversation I've ever had, but also the most honest. Then, something unexpected happened. The next morning, she told me she had applied for a full-time teaching position. She said she realized that her dream might have to wait, and that our family's needs had to come first. I was shocked. It was like the woman I fell in love with had finally come back. We're now working on mending our relationship. It's not easy, and there's a lot of trust that needs to be rebuilt. But for the first time in a long time, I feel hopeful about our future. Thank you for reading. My teen bride left me and our baby to party with friends, but after her car crash, I made sure she faced the music and took full custody. So my 24-year-old brother married and had a child with a 19-year-old girl. It was an arranged marriage. They aren't common in our culture, but my parents were close with this girl's father, and they thought she was very pretty and essentially pre-ordered her for my brother. Her father is a very controlling man, so he wanted control over who she'd marry, and this is how he did it. They married soon after her 18th birthday. Initially, the girl, I will call her Grace, was starstruck by my brother, and I get it. He's 6 feet 5 inches, very muscular, and has a good job, and they were happy initially. She was also getting loads of attention from everyone, and after growing up pretty neglected, heard from her cousins, she loved it. Then, she got pregnant pretty soon after. Her pregnancy was awful and she was sick all the time, and I guess that's when she realized she was in a mess. I heard my parents saying that she had gotten cold feet about the relationship, that she was scared of becoming a mother so young and wanted out. She disappeared in the middle of the night during her 6th month of pregnancy and moved in with her grandparents, who disapproved of the arranged marriage from the start. My brother never treated her badly, but expected her to step into this role of a wife when she wasn't even done being a kid yet. She had a daughter, and she lets my brother see the girl, but she doesn't want to get back with him. Her father and my parents have been chalking it up to nerves, but it's clearly someone who's learned better and is trying to do better with her life. There is bipolar disorder on her mother's side of the family, and they've been trying to claim that she's gone mental. Again, no. She's just a girl who realized she is way too young to be someone's wife. She hasn't asked for a divorce yet, but she is saying that she wants time to figure herself out. She started to go partying with friends and drinking regularly. The baby is always with her grandparents, but she does love that child. She's just trying to heal, figure herself out. From what I can tell, my brother did love her in some capacity, and he is very upset about her leaving him. He's been begging her to take her back, sending her gifts, buying the baby expensive clothes, etc. She isn't responding to these things. He is losing weight and has taken time off work because he misses her. Yesterday, he was complaining to me about missing her, and I snapped. It's obvious to anyone with eyes that he's wrong, so I told him that it's his fault for marrying a girl so young. Now he's mad at me. My sister is telling me it wasn't my business and I should have held my tongue because my brother is suffering, but I don't think I'm wrong. Edit. Realized I missed a bit out. The reason why I mentioned her partying and drinking is because he complains about her doing this all the time. He'll take her pictures from social media and say that she isn't behaving how a mother-wife should act. That is why I snapped at him. I told him that she shouldn't complain about her behaving like a young person because he married a young person. Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Not the idiot. The reality is that the girl had her choices taken away from her, and your brother is culpable in that. I do think you are likely ignoring some things. In general, women don't disappear in the middle of the night unless that is the only option they have or they fear for their lives. It's usually both. They are even less likely to do that when pregnant unless they fear for their lives. Something to think about. Comment 2. Has he tried, talking to her? If she's willing, could they try dating and see how it goes? If it's good, maybe they can get back together. I couldn't blame her for saying no. It sounds like she spent her whole life being abused. Is your brother a good dad? Now for the update, thanks for tuning in again. So the situation with my brother and Grace has spiraled since I last filled you in. My brother, still reeling from my blunt words, decided to confront Grace's father about her behavior. He thought maybe he could get him to talk some sense into her. Big mistake. Grace's father, the control freak, flipped the script and accused my brother of failing as a husband. He said my brother should have kept a tighter leash on her. Can you believe that? Meanwhile, Grace's partying escalated. She was out every other night, and her grandparents, bless them, were left to care for the baby. They're old, and this wasn't what they signed up for. They tried to talk to Grace, but she was in her own world, trying to reclaim the youth she felt she'd lost. Then, 2 days ago, everything changed. Grace was in a car accident. She wasn't hurt bad, just a few scratches, but it was a wake-up call. She'd been drinking, and though she wasn't the one driving, it was a close call. The police got involved, and her grandparents were beside themselves with worry. They called my brother in the middle of the night, and he rushed over. The next morning, my brother sat down with Grace and her grandparents. He admitted that he hadn't considered how young she was, how unprepared for all this. He promised to support her decisions, even if that meant they wouldn't get back together. Grace broke down, admitting she was lost and scared. They decided, for the sake of their daughter, to start fresh. Not as a couple, but as co-parents. Grace would get the space she needed to figure herself out, and my brother would be there for his daughter. They agreed to family counseling, and my brother took it upon himself to attend some therapy sessions for his own issues. Yesterday, I visited them. The atmosphere was tense but hopeful. Grace's grandparents were relieved, and my brother looked like he'd lifted a weight off his shoulders. He even thanked me for being harsh with him. It was a reality check he needed. Thanks for reading. If you liked this video, You'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.